Welcome to our LB's The Lover of Books author chat. If this is your first time here live or watching a recording, I'm so glad you found us. I've had the honor to interview over 80 debut to best-selling authors, and readers like you have helped me amass, y'all, it is growing. It's almost 27,000 hours. So that is so cool. Thank y'all so much for joining in. I appreciate you taking the time to like and comment as it helps more readers find this content. And especially if you're subscribing, I really appreciate that as well. Tonight, I'm here to introduce you to our most recent LB's author. We have number one New York Times bestselling author Erin A. Craig, who always loves telling stories. After getting her BFA at the University of Michigan, where she lives now, in theater and design and production, she stage managed tragic operas with hunchbacks, seances, and murderous clowns, and then decided she wanted to write books that were just as spooky. An avid reader, a decent quilter, we'll have to talk that as well, rabid basketball fan, and a collector of typewriters, brass figurines, and sparkly shoes, Erin makes her home in West Michigan with her husband and daughter. Thank you so much, Erin, for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I was just beyond delighted when I heard you were picking land for one of your book club picks, and it's a delight.
Well, we're so glad to have you. I definitely try to pick different genres, and this one is a little bit more outside of some people's bubble. So let's just go ahead and dive in. This is your first adult book,
It
correct?
is.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about that experience. One, how did you decide this was going to be adult? What did it start off as YA and became adult, or you're like, I'm writing an adult book?
It started truthfully. It started off as a YA book. I had kind of like this weird, I had like this itch. I think like a lot of people, like as the 10, 15 year, or whatever it was, Hunger Games anniversary was starting to kind of percolate. I think a lot of us were kind of like, ooh, like something in adjacent. And I was just like, I want Hunger Games, but in Canada, but also not that. And so it started out YA very, very strongly in the YA camp. And my editor, who I absolutely love, I've been super fortunate on the YA end to work with Wendy Loja for about we're on book 7 and 8 right now. But we've been a very long-term relationship. I love working with her, but she's also very busy. She became publisher this year of the thing. She's working on another imprint, starting it up and everything. And so when I pitched her the idea for this book, normally they have editors give you like 30 days or so, and they have to like, yes, this is what we want your option to be. No, this could be better. Let's think of something new. And we waited for about 9 months or so to hear on this one. And I immediately was like, okay, she didn't like answer in like 2 weeks. She hates it. And like fully realizing she's busy lady and doing things. But in my head, I was like, she hates it. I've got to come up with something else. And so I ended up writing what became 13th Child for her. And I was like, gosh, I really love this story, but Wendy hates it. Wendy had not even read it. But in my head, I was like, she hates it. What do I do? And my agent was like, I think this could go adult. Like, let's age her up. Let's make it, a little more graphic, a little more spicy than what you usually do with YA stuff. Um, and let's see what we do. And for the longest time, I had this really weird mental block because I was like, oh my gosh, it's adult. It's got to be so important because it's adult. And I was like, it's got to be like literary and highbrow and like adult. And my agent was like, what is the last adult book you read? And it was one of Riley Sager's books. And I was like, Home Before Dark. And she was like, do you think Riley Sager cares about literary highbrow things? I'm like, of course he's Riley Sager. And she's like, no, he just wants to tell a good story. Just tell a good story. You know how to do that. Just do that. And so like once I kind of unpacked all of my weird adult baggage, it was really fun. My one favorite like moment of like, oh gosh, you're not in like YA land anymore. When I gave the first draft to my first editor, because I've had two on this book, she was like, Erin, I love everything. You can't call the love interest a beautiful boy. And I was like, why not? And then it's like, oh, because it's adult. So that took it. She's like, give him a beard, give him something. He's a man. And I was like, yes, yes, he is. So once that was done, it was off the races.
Is there a defining line that's that is YA versus adult, that once you cross it, it for sure is one or the other?
I feel like at some point I'm sure there was, it's gotten so blurry. And honestly, like if you look at the demographics of people who are reading YA books, 70% of them are women of our age. Um so it's hard to tell, like, and you see like it's usually men writing these like very highbrow literary books, but it's told by a teenage protagonist, and so it's, you can't even say like, well, the MC is, under 18, um because it's not always a hard and definite rule. And I feel like because of the rise of romantasy and Sarah J Maas, bless her heart, with all of her spicy fairies, the line of like what you can get away with in YA is very, it's becoming like less hard and fast than it used to be, with space levels, with gore, even, I would say. This one I felt like, I personally, me, as a mom, I never want to give a book to like write a book for a teenager, because I do write my YA, for teenagers. I would never want to give something to a kid that would keep them up at night with nightmares. Personally, because I have a daughter who occasionally has nightmares, and I would not want to be inflicting that on other families. So I try to keep I love writing spooky things, but I try to keep like the super graphic body horror stuff a little more tame in YA. So it was really fun to have like showers of blood raining from the sky in this one.
Well, so on this one, did it make you nervous when they said, let's go more adult? Or was that like a yes, I'm ready for this, that 15-year mark like you talked about?
I was definitely like, I was excited to go darker with a lot of the horror and kind of the vampiric nature. Oh, are we spoilers? We've all read the book. We're ready
Spoilers.
spoilers.
Yes,
Awesome.
all spoilers.
Excellent. So I was super excited to like take the Bright Eyes in the direction they went. Um, the spice scenes, like, admittedly, they're quite tame compared to a lot of romantasy getting written these days. That definitely made me blush like a little bit. I think when I wrote my first the scene with Ellis, my grandmother, who was alive at the time, she had just gotten television. She's like, I'm so happy you're such a good girl and you always write such nice clean books. And I was just like, oh yeah, about that. So it was definitely weird. Like kissing scenes are my least favorite thing across the board to write. Like I would much rather write about, ghosts dismembering things. And so that was a little nerve-wracking, knowing like, and my second editor was like, we definitely could like take the spice level up a little. And I was just like, but do we have to? Like, it's raining blood from the sky. There's bats falling everywhere. Like, let's go with that.
So I've heard some authors wait to write those love scenes, sex scenes, kiss scenes, whatever it is, all together, or do you write them as they come throughout the novel?
I write everything chronologically. So if I'm having issue with something, I stop and like we'll pick at it. I find it very hard to like jump forward in the book, so I have to tell it linearly through the book. So they all get kind of separated. So you always know, like, there's always a day where I like get up super early to try to get out the spice scene, so it's done for the day and I can move on with my business.
Well, you even really bring us into the gore, I would say, part of it with just how they had to live and survive with, killing of the animals or whatever it was. Like I was just, I was thinking, could my vegetarian friends read this? I'm not sure if I would recommend this, but it did really set the scene to get us ready for what was to come because that's very minor in comparison to what's coming.
Mhm, mhm.
Well, let's talk about crossover because you said you do know that there are adults reading YA. Have you found any of your YA readers that are sort of grown with you? Have they now picked up this book as well? Or have you had new to you adult authors now say, oh, let's talk about your previous books and which one should I read?
It's been kind of all across the boards. I just finished doing a book signing right before Christmas, and there was a girl, I remember she came to one of my first House of Salt and Sorrows, so like way back in 2019. I will never forget these guys. I was up in Michigan visiting my parents, and it was down in Memphis at the time, and they were doing like a Black Friday something or other at one of the local bookstores. And I was like, oh, I'm in town. Like I'll come out. And her dad drove her. She was a senior in high school. And he drove up from Southern Ohio all the way to come see me for the book thing. And I was just like, and I'm like little debut author Erin. And I was just like, this is insane. It's snowing. Like we had a blizzard. Like what is happening? And he's like, well, she doesn't play sports, and I always thought I'd have a son, who I'd take to, NBA basketball games or whatever, but she doesn't like sports. So this is her Super Bowl. So we drove up to see you. And I like that blew my mind. And then I was at the signing right before Christmas at a mall in Michigan, and they walked in, and she's in her, I think, she's a sophomore or junior in college now, and she's like, I am so excited to read your adult book, and this is going to be so great. And she's like, you probably don't remember me, like, Samantha, oh my gosh, your dad's Fred. Like, it was so cool to see them, and like getting to see her grow up all these years later. It's been wild. And then conversely, we've got, adults coming, and I've got like all these, there was our library in my hometown. They picked it for their book club pick, and it's a lot of 60 and 70-year-old women. And so they came to the talk. They were so lovely. And they're like, what can I buy for my grandchildren? I'll read it first. And I was like, yes, this is great. Books are books.
I love that you are someone's Super Bowl. Like to me,
Crazy,
I
right?
mean,
Like,
that's so cool. And I love that dad was just embracing it all. And
oh, best girl dad. Like, oh my gosh, amazing.
absolutely, absolutely. No, that is great. Have you felt any difference in promoting this book versus what you've had to promote before with YA, or is it pretty much the same feelings and what you need to do and all that?
It's been good. This is the first there's variations and stuff just because it's like a different publishing house. And so like on the YA side, like usually my tour schedule, like I hit really hard for like 1 to 2 weeks. And then it kind of tapers off, and it's more, it's a couple local events, if there's like a small business Saturday or something like that. This one, I don't know if it's just the way Pantheon does things, but it was just kind of like confetti all over the calendar for like 3 months. It was like just pop-up events kind of all over the place, which it was fun. It was exhausting. But I liked it. It was like, oh, I'm jetting off to California tomorrow. Oh, I'll be in New York in a couple of weeks. So it was just like very kind of lots of confetti.
I love it because that means, it's not just your local state
Mhm.
or, region, but now other people are getting to meet you and you'll have more Super Bowls. But that is
Absolutely.
that is so cool. Now you made an interesting comment earlier that I wanted to follow up on. You said you had two editors. Explain this. Like I normally don't hear that too often, and what that
No.
meant for this book.
This was my cursed book. I love
Okay,
it. It was
explain.
all of this is now it's in the past. So we're moved past everything. It's good. But I when the book originally was acquired, which actually I was looking on Facebook memories that 3 years ago today, we sold the book. Um we were acquired by Vintage Anchor, which is within the Random House family. I had an editor who acquired it. She was very delightful. They ended up Vintage disbanded, or I'm sorry, Anchor disbanded. They just folded as a publishing house. They absorbed all of the other authors into different places, and so we got the call. And they're like, we're not sure where you're going. It could be Doubleday, it could be Pantheon, it could be Knopf. And I'm like, oh my gosh, don't send me to Knopf. It's highbrow literary. I'm not adult. We wrote this for fun. And so I ended up at Pantheon, and they said, well, the good news, you're keeping your editor. And then they were like, she's the one who, wanted the book. She acquired it. She believes in it. Like, this is the best case scenario of everything. And I was like, oh, hey, this is great. And so I kept writing, and I think we were like halfway through our first round of edits together. And she had been living in the UK with the assumption she and her partner were going to be moving back to the US. And then he made partner at his law firm in London. And so she's like, I don't think we're moving back. And there's a job at Bloomsbury, so I'm gonna take that. But you're gonna be in great hands with Anna, and she's gonna have all the notes. It's gonna be so good. And so she's like, just keep working on what all the notes that we did. And so I finally met Anna, and it was great. And she was like, "So this doesn't really feel like a romance novel," and it's not. She's like, I was really surprised there were vampires. And I was like, yeah, it's horror. And she's like, is it? And I was like, isn't it? So it was a lot of weird back and forthness. And so like when anyone asks like what genre is this, I honestly don't know. Like it's fantasy, it's folk horror, it's romantasy, we've got historical fiction. They're trying to plug it as, which yay that there are vampires running around. So it was an odd process, especially having always had the same editor in the YA universe. Like it felt like I was kind of hopping ships midstream.
Well, if you could pick, like you said, like you could choose where it was going to be in what category in the library or in the bookstore, do you have a preference of where this book would sit?
Um, Really nichely, I like folk horror. Just because it's got like I feel like that gives it ties in a little bit of the historical fiction. You get the fantasy, you get, blood raining from the sky. I think it wraps it up neatly. I don't think it's scary enough to warrant being on the horror shelf. But if you're in a really super niche store, folk horror.
I love it. Yeah, I think horror sometimes scares certain readers away, but you add folk in front of it, and it's like it is a good combination. Yeah,
Cozy horror.
it's cozy. Yeah, that's hilarious. Blood raining from the sky is cozy. Okay.
Absolutely.
Speaking of blood raining from the sky, is that what you have portrayed here on?
Yes. I love the cover. Like they did such an amazing job. The one thing I had zero notes when they showed it to me, except for the bats. They originally were starlings, and I was like, "Can we have the bat?" Like, I love the swarm of bats. Like that scene was so much fun to write. Originally, there were going to be it was the moss, the bats, and then owls were going to come and eat the bats, and we decided that was one swarm too many. But I loved the moss getting devoured, the bats, all the little noises and everything they made. I had so much fun doing the research on that, and so I was like, we gotta get bats on the cover.
So, what does your research look like in a book like this? It's set in the mid 1700s. Does that really matter, or what does that matter to you? Obviously, it's set in Canada. There's a certain, like you said, wilderness to it. So, what did your research look like?
Oh gosh, it was all over the boards. One of my favorite parts of being an author is just like getting to research really niche subject matters. Whatever fascinates me, like usually ends up in a book because you spend all this time like falling down a rabbit hole. It's like, I want to tell everyone how salmon, like sturgeon spawn. Why wouldn't anyone be interested in this? Just spent 5 hours of my life reading about this. Um, so there was a lot on this one, just the historical time period of it. I had this really great book that's not near me right now, but it's the Household Beaten Guide to Midwifery, something. It's a really odd title, but it was written at that time period. It was a Scottish household book. And so there's ways to polish silver, there's ways to cook an eel pie, there's like all these different things that you were doing in the household. And I thought, oh, she grew up very closely with the housekeeper and everything. These would be skills she would be well versed in. And then I read a bunch of Adam Schultz's books, which if you guys have not read him, he's fantastic. My favorite of his is The Whisper on the Night Wind, and it takes place in Newfoundland, or no, I'm sorry, Labrador. And he basically is National Geographic Canada's explorer in residence. And so he's kind of like Indiana Jones. He goes around like solving Canadian wilderness mysteries, which I think is like the coolest job possible. And then he gets to write books about them. And so he does a lot of making, he discovers, rivers that people haven't actually ever forded. He goes around, I think this past summer, he was looking at like trying to photograph all of the 7 different species of Canadian snakes. And so he's got these amazing books, and I was like, yes, this is my guy. I want to like read all of his stuff to like just immerse myself in Canada, and just get really kind of in that wilderness, exploration mindset. And then there was like a lot of random stupid stuff, especially with the bright eyes, because I wanted to have. So the story is based on Tim Lin, but I don't like fairies at all. They freak me out. I know this is a terrible thing to admit to, and the
Oh my
golden age
gosh. That fairies
for
freak you out, but not the okay. I'm loving this. Keep going.
So when I was looking at writing a Tamlin story, I was like, well, I can't use fairies because they're scary. And I don't understand them. So I was like, I want to do something Scottish. I liked the idea of having like this colonial monster come and like take over and like literally show like how terrible colonialism can be. And so I live on Lake Michigan, and I was like, it's like the zebra mussels. Like zebra mussels have completely taken over Lake Michigan. They're sinking boats because they get on their invasive species. And I was like, what is the Canadian monster equivalent to zebra mussels? And I started like thinking, looking at different like Scottish mythology stuff, and I really loved the idea of the Selkie. And they're the seal creatures who can magically take their skin off and they lose their power. The power is left in the skin. And I loved that idea for the bright eyes. But I knew I wanted them falling out of the sky. I wanted them like up in the trees, skittering down and everything. So I was like, okay, it's a vampire Selkie thing that would take on different attributes of whatever animal the person who had originally, been a person. Once they turn bright-eyed, what would that look like? And so I watched a lot of bats on treadmills videos on Instagram or on YouTube. There's this study, bats can walk and then they can run on treadmills conversely. And so there's all these videos of bats on treadmill. And I watched those for I don't know how long. I fell down a giant rabbit hole on that. And I remember very distinctly my husband had been, he's my business manager, and he had been, dealing with all the taxes and stuff or something. And he's like, oh, I figured out this tax code thing. He's like, what did you do this morning? I was like, I think I spent like 2 hours watching bats on treadmills. And he was like, we lead very different lives. So
Well,
I really, truly, that's, I think, why I became a writer. Like, I like researching weird stuff.
well, when you said watching bats on treadmill, I thought you meant you were on the treadmill
No, no, no,
watching
the
bat videos. Now we know.
bat.
That's even better. That
Oh
is
my gosh,
so
it's fascinating. They apparently, whatever angle that a bat's knee is at, they were doing research to help with like knee replacements in humans. And so there's just hours of videos of bats running on treadmills, and it's just fascinating because their hands are up here
yeah.
and their elbows, and it's weird. It's really fun. I highly recommend it. YouTube has some great stuff.
I never have gotten that recommendation, so thank you so much. Okay, you mentioned this Canadian wilderness mystery solver. Is that something you would like to shadow? Like, would you want to be in this or just read about it?
It would be so cool. Oh my gosh, I would love it. I kind of bullied Adam into being my friend on Instagram. I'm very persistent. But I was like, oh, this is a great book. Tell me more. And it was back in the glory days of COVID, like the live internet, the Instagram live stuff they had just started. And so I had started doing these spooky season salons. And so I was like, we're going to talk about nature and all the ways it can kill you. You want to come on and talk? And he was like, this is a weird ask, but sure. So we spent the whole time talking about like wind knocking trees over and polar bears chasing you. And he is fascinating. And he's a parent as well. And he's got kids, and he just leaves his wife and his kids and like wanders off. He paddled from, I believe it was Lake Superior, all the way up to Hudson Bay Valley. It was like 4,000 kilometers, just solo canoeing, kayaking all the way across Canada all by himself. It's wild. I would love that. That'd be so much fun. I would die like on day 2, but I don't do well with mosquito bites.
Well, I'm seeing a collaboration between you two at some point. Like,
That would be
you should totally write a book together
amazing.
and be persistent. Like, how cool would that be? Like,
Oh, it'd be so much fun. I keep trying to get him down. Lake Michigan is the one of the Great Lakes that he has not kayaked. And I'm like, we're right here. Like, come down. We've got a book festival in March. Like, come do a book signing and go kayak. It'll be great.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, somebody just posted the video of the
Yes.
on the treadmill. Thank you, Judy. That's so funny. All right. So you talked about how he also has maps. Like it's a very important part of his career. It's extremely important with Greer.
Mhm.
And did you know immediately that that was going to be one of her traits, like her love, her passion, and that's how she would sort of fit in with this society in Mistaken?
I liked it a lot. I wanted to have her because I had that the idea for this, the warding stones and everything, and like thinking like, what would that be like growing up? Like, this is the only world you know. You cannot go past, so far past these things without getting yanked back. And like me myself as a comfortable person, I would find comfort in that. I think like the bright eyes are out there. We know we're safe. Like this is fine, and like you don't, and because it is 1750s, like you don't know about the outside world. So like, would you miss what you don't know? And that was kind of my question for Greer, is like, how much is this what you've imagined that you're missing, and how much of it is a true like, I don't fit in here, the town thinks I'm weird, like I want to get away, and how much of it is just like the imagination and like that wanderlust, like could you have wanderlust stuck in so many square miles. And so for her, and because she does have these weird quirks with her hearing and all of her mama's genetics, um I thought like it would be super comforting to be able, when things are so big and chaotic with auditory stimulation and everything, to be able to very concretely plot out what you know of the world. And she kind of plays that game with herself, like tell like, what are the truths that I know, like this is for sure, this is for sure. And like map making, I think is just a visual representation of this is the known. And past this point I don't know anything, but like from this square miles, this is what I know to be true. And so it starts out small. She's got Main Street, she keeps going bigger and bigger, and then once she's outside of the warding stones, and then just pragmatically also, like once she's past the warding stones and she's got her necklace that helps her leave the town, it helped that she had kind of explored a little bit and kind of
Yeah.
understood like, all right, this is the way the river would flow, all of these things, we know the mountains are this direction. So it definitely helped with the second half of the book.
Absolutely. I loved though, and it really set it up when Greer's talking about her map and she says, "Look, the world doesn't stop, just the paper ends." And for me, that was a like, oh, okay, it's really part of her DNA, I think, that needs to get out, as well as, her DNA probably explains the not fitting in too, right? So I thought that was the perfect hobby, job, whatever you want to call it for her, because it did tie in so many things and it actually fits on theme so
Mhm.
much for it as well. So kudos to you on that.
Oh, thank you.
Um, on the part with the wanderlust, though, there was a quote in the book, and I'm trying to remember, but it was pretty much like she had so much wanderlust, but these spools of thread made her feel like a marionette or something like that. And I wanted
Mhm.
you to talk about that because I found that so fascinating. So I wanted to hear your take on it.
So just a lot of it, like she gets pulled around so much in her life, like especially having the society that she's in, where at a certain age the girls definitely go off and they're out of the father's house, they're starting their own households, they're starting their own family and everything. And Greer should have 7 years before, and she should have kids of her own now, she should be raising children and perpetuating the next generation of mistakenates. mistakenates, mistaken nears, mistaken people. And but because Ailey died, she didn't. And so I loved the idea of having her so stifled at home, which is this place of comfort and safety and security that it should be, and is very much not for her. I think that the impetus to get away from all of that starts the wanderlust, and that closed pen feeling of the warding stones constantly. Like she does want to break free, and it does become kind of like a physical tug for her, like tugging her north. And a lot of the stuff I was researching, with like how birds and monarchs and all these things, they have like that innate sense of like it's time to migrate, whether they've done it before or not.
Mhm.
um they know we're going south, we're going to Mexico, we're going to wherever it is that the creatures are supposed to go. And there's lots of schools of thought on how and why, and no one's really totally cracked the code on it. But I loved the idea that Greer, because she is also, part bright-eyed, that she would have that compulsion to travel and explore and see the bigger picture outside of Mistaken, and that it would be like an actual physical pull on her.
Yeah, I thought that was genius. I do want to go back to her parents though, because you brought up Ailey, and now I'm going to bring up Hessel. Did either one of them truly love her? Like it seems at time, of course, Hessel, he's a horrible human being in my opinion.
Gotcha.
But also Ailey, I question her motives in a lot of ways, like to create this air is, but then at times Greer talks so lovingly about her mother, but then other times I'm like, well, wait a minute. So what was your take on that?
My take is that Ailey loved her, very much, I think, because she wouldn't have gone through all of everything she did, to not have her. I think she probably wasn't always, when she started the journey that began all of this. She was probably thinking about, the good of the coven, the horde of bright. Well, there was three of it at that point. Ellen came in and messed all of that up. But I think she was probably thinking about, the good of the bright-eyeds. And it's kind of like bees with a queen, and actually this is a terrible example because the queen actually doesn't do it, but the worker bees, when the queen is, dying and getting sick, it is or isn't performing her job as well as they think they should, they'll start feeding royal jelly, to a new queen, and they actually make the new queen, and then they'll fight to the death, and whichever queen, emerges victorious is the ruler of the hive. And so it probably started out that way, like, okay, I'm getting closer to death, like I need a good replacement, because otherwise, if Elowen's left in charge, all hell breaks loose, as we see. um and so I think she probably did it out of love for her group, her herd, of bright-eyeds. But then when she actually had the daughter, I think knowing that I was a little kind of Princess Diana, like you're raising, this future monarch, and you want them to be good and kind and know all of these things, whether she knows the full picture of everything. She wanted her to be a better leader than Elwyn would have. And so I think she does teach her lots of lessons along the way. Whether Greer knew what her training was actually for or not, obviously it was not the case. But I think that she, deep down in her heart of hearts, loved her.
So why did she choose Hessel?
I think Hessel was just the guy that picked her out. Like she was hiding, and that was the guy.
Well, I just
um,
he is a
it
strong.
could
I
have
mean,
been anybody.
well, yeah. Well, when you're, they say, in nature, they're going to pick one of the strongest to procreate with, right? Because it establishes a line. I thought, well, maybe that's it as well.
But
And I
he definitely is kind of the alpha male of the thing. He's got the mill, he's got all the respect of the council and the stewards and everything, and
exactly.
definitely the alpha male of Mistaken.
And so much of your book and your writing does follow nature's natural path. When you were talking about migration, when you're talking about the bats, like all these things, it's woven in, whether we realize it or not, it's in your head. So I was just thinking, I wonder if that's part of the
It was
hustle.
not consciously, but I like that. I like the alpha male theory.
Okay, let's keep moving, because I want to talk about how you came up with this idea of the bright eyes. And I know I love the the silk the cover that they can shed.
Mhm.
But now you're mixing it with a human. And
Mhm.
so how did you know immediately how this would affect her, or do you write this as you're going to see how Greer's going to take this on?
I'm a big plotter. So before I ever like actually start drafting the book, I've kind of outlined, I've done a bunch of like character synopsises and things. Um, and I always knew I wanted Greer to have the hearing, because like when you think of bats, which is kind of the basis for the bright eyes genetic makeup, I guess, if you want to go with that. You think of their extraordinary hearing and their sense of radar and like their giant ears. And I knew I wanted her to have that feeling. Like I when I have panic attacks, I hear noises at the same level, whether they're across the room or talking right next to me. And so I was like, what if that was a superpower? It wasn't just this thing of a panic attack. What if that was her superpower? Is that she, can hear all of these things as a bat would, or as any nocturnal animal would. Um, but because she is a human and isn't expecting to have this other lineage, it's seen as this weirdness, and it makes her this other, even though she should be the most highly desirable girl in the hunt that year. She's got her father's mill, the legacy, the money, all of that and everything. She's kind of a town weirdo, and like everyone's like, oh gosh, she can predict how people die, she can do all, they start attributing all these things that are so much past what she really can do, just because it's small town, and small towns are going to small town. um and so having her cope with like this really amazing power as a not great thing, I thought was really interesting. And then when she actually gets out into the wilderness and is kind of in her element where the bright eyed should be, suddenly it's seen more as like, oh, this is super helpful. I can hear the river that's 5 miles away. I can hear when Elwin's, crossing it across the snow. I can hear all these different things. And it becomes this kind of superpower that the bright eyes intended it to be. Like, it is a gift. It is a good trait to have. Um, so that it was interesting to take like how the humans would perceive, suddenly having these great grand gifts, and so easily diminish it down to, oh, she's the weirdo. She can hear funny things. That's strange.
Well, what was I'm going to go ahead and just jump to the ending because I have to ask this. At the end, we know that we're assuming that the couple is Ellis and Greer, right? And the lovers,
It
right?
is, yeah.
Right. I mean, so they're headed on a ship to the old world, but yet we know Finn is flying above, okay, with the two talons, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay.
There's been some
So
people who have been very confused. They're like, is that Finn? And I'm like, no, it really is.
it really is. I mean, he had the two, yeah,
He's
anyways. So,
back.
but she no longer has that awareness anymore. To a certain extent, she has been able to shed her cloak in a way so that she's living more like a human than like a bright-eyed. So, explain that, number one. And then number two, are we going to get a sequel? Because it felt so sequel at the end. Like I was just like, this is not it. No.
So I did love like that final scream when which we don't actually see in real time because it's kind of fairy tale interstitial telling. But that final scream that she does that destroys the warding stones. I did see that as kind of like her using up the last of the powers. The cloak is gone, the mantle is gone. And she can live out her life with Ellis, which was the point of the book. Like I for a hot second, I was like, "Gosh, Finn is so cool. She should end up with him." And then the whole reason I started the book in the first place was because I did want to have a Tamlin retelling. And the thing that I loved so much about that book, that ballad, is how fiercely she loves Tamlin. And she, goes into the forest. She goes into a land she's never been into. She fights a fairy queen. She's a mortal girl. She can't do anything. And when it comes down to it, and she's just confronted with the hunt and the fairy queen and everything, she does the only thing she can, and she holds on to him. She grabs Tamlin off the horse as he's running by and just holds on to him. And the fairy queen turns him into, I think it's a lion, a snake, and a fire poker, I think. And she just, all through that, getting attacked by these things, just holds on to him because she loves him that much. And so that's what I wanted to honor, was the fierceness of this girl's love for this guy in a time when, these ballads were written, women did not go and save their men. They were the damsels in distress. And so to have a woman brave the woods for her guy and save him, that would be so embarrassing for the guy. Like, oh my gosh, this girl came and saved me from the fairy queen. If I got attacked by the fairy queen, and B, a girl saved me. But I loved that she loved him so much that she would do all of this. And so I wanted Greer to eventually end up with Ellis, since that was what started
And
the
I
book.
thought yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you stuck to that Tamlin. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, here, a book two has to start with some sort of tragedy, right? Something happens to Ellis, even though she's had this love.
Mm-hmm.
Because are they the last two? Do you still consider her part bright-eyed, or do you feel like could the
I
cloak have been absorbed, or is she literally that's it for her?
I think I hadn't, so when I, full disclosure, I didn't intend for it to ever, like this, it felt like this was going to be a one and done for me with this world, but I really do like the world a lot. And so I think she has finished her bright-eyed journey. I think a lot of blood was taken out of her when they were all feeding on her in the cave. And so I think she lost a lot of blood. And I think she kind of burnt up the rest of the power that she had with those final screams to save everything. And I liked that she and Ellis were starting their lives kind of on equal footing. Like, she's not going to be, this all powerful figure changing creature. And he's old Ellis, the baker boy. And so I liked that. But I don't know if I think Finn is the last of the Bright-Eyeds leaving Canada. And that was what I wanted. I wanted to make sure all of the Bright-Eyeds were eradicated. Because they were an invasive species. They didn't belong there. They had disrupted the nature, as the First Nations, the grandfather and the daughter, granddaughter were talking about, like, all of nature's cycles are wrong now because they've invaded the land, and they're eating the sturgeon, they're eating the polar bear, like all these things that they're disrupting by being here and being this alpha predator. I wanted to get them out fully, and so it was like, well, okay, if Finn survived, maybe he's the last one. He's going back to Scotland. I'm sure there's a really cute bright-eyed girl waiting for him across the sea.
No, I did appreciate that she was such a strong female protagonist, and um that it wasn't because it was she came from such a patriarchal setting. I mean, even that opening scene when they're in the woods with her friend Luis.
Luis.
Yeah. And Luis is just like the raging feminist, which I
I
love,
love
like
her so
taking us
much.
down. All this, and then yet she keeps her love throughout, no matter what happens. Yeah, I loved that strong female character. So awesome. I did.
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna do some rapid fire questions. And audience, be thinking of what you would like to ask Erin. Okay. So, somebody said, coincidentally, Finn, I'll be in Edinburgh next week.
Go find
Ashley,
him. Let's go
Ashley
what he's
has,
doing.
yeah, she has obviously found Finn. Okay. So, are you ready for your rapid fire? All right. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird. I get up usually about 4 a.m.
Woo, that is super early bird. What's your favorite woodland creature?
Grizzly bear.
Land or sea?
Land? I really like water, but more lake.
You need a
Sea is
surrounding.
freaky. It's got way too many things we don't know about.
All right. Do you have a favorite fable?
I really, really love Beauty and the Beast. For fairy tales, I really love the 12, obviously 12 Dancing Princesses, and Rumpelstiltskin. Like my sister and I wore out our cassette tape. They had like, even back when you like Jello, you could send in like the box tops and get the cassette tapes. We had the Rumpelstiltskin one, and we broke I think like three of them listening to it over and over again. I love Rumpelstiltskin.
Oh, that's awesome. What's your best research fact you learned from this book?
um, I think the bats with the knees, like that was just so
Yes.
weird. I didn't.
Seriously.
I was looking. I looked at like all of the anatomy on like a lot of creatures because the bright eyes do shift into a lot of things, and so just looking at like how animals are made is just it's fascinating. Like I would never taxidermy freaks me out, but like it would be kind of fun to like articulate the skeleton. Maybe I don't know. I'm admitting things here. I shouldn't be.
Do you have a favorite genre to read?
I really love horror, and I also like psychological thrillers or
Okay.
romantic, like royal rom com. Love that.
Do you prefer books, ebooks, or audiobooks?
All of the above.
Same. All right. And what's your favorite typewriter?
I have. Is she near me? No, she's not. I've got a 1954 Pink Royal Silent Deluxe that my mama gave me. She was my first typewriter, and she's bright pink, or I should say, she's bubblegum pink. And she was a Valentine's gift when I think it turned 20. I think we found her in a shop window, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's $40. She is too expensive. And my mom was like, happy Valentine's Day.
So was
And I
that the
still use her to
first? That
type.
was your first of the collection then?
Yep.
Oh, that's special. That's really cool.
hmm
All right, team, it is time for you to ask a question. So if you would like, go ahead and raise your hand and we can get started. If you don't want to ask live, you can always type it in the chat box as well. All right. While y'all are figuring that out, how to raise your hand, I am going to ask um, what you are working on next. Can you give us any tidbits, Erin, on what's to come?
So on the YA front, my next book is going to be out September 1st. It is a celebration of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera, which turns 40 this year. And I have teamed up with Lloyd Webber Musicals and Andrew himself. And we've written the story of Phantom of the Opera, but it's strictly through Christine's perspective. And so for the first time, we actually get to hear why you would go back to the man who just dropped a chandelier on you. And getting to hear like her perspective on everything, how she and Raoul, they're kind of little meet cute as kids. And just getting to know more about her life. And it's been just such a joy getting to work with Andrew and the team. This was the show that got me into theater and why I became a stage manager. And so to get to become part of the legacy and help, rewrite a lot of the canon and everything for this musical has just been insanely awesome. And then I've got an adult book that I'm in edits for. And if you're interested in psychological cult mystery with maybe things in the woods, you should keep your peepers peeped because there's an announcement coming soon.
Excellent. I will definitely be keeping tabs on you what's coming next. I do want to ask the theater project you're working on. Do you know when and where? Like, can you give us some time frame on that? Like, is that something we'll be able to see?
The book comes out September 1st. And then we've got a cover reveal coming, I think, in like the next 2 weeks or so.
Okay.
Because the Phantom turns 40. It had its debut on Broadway. I think it's January 26th. So that might be a good date to be on social media. Is all I'm saying.
Definitely. We will be paying attention. All right, Jaden, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but would you ask your question?
Hello.
Yes, this is maybe kind of a weird question. But so I also read and loved Small Favors, and I want to know if while they're separated by about 100 years and many, many geographical miles, do the Bright Eyes and the Watchers exist in the same world, hypothetically in the same universe?
I love that theory so much because they do have a lot of when I first like proposed this idea to my agent, she was like, "You wrote a tree book. I'm like, these are different trees. These are Canadian trees. They're very different. She's like, they're pine trees. I'm like, no, they're very different. I love the idea of like Lyra and Elowen like being buds at some point in time in history. Like, I think they would be really good frenemies. I would like that a lot.
Jaden is definitely agreeing with this theory. Thank you so much. What a great question. That's interesting because I love it when authors give us little Easter eggs and hint across titles. That's pretty cool. Hopefully it happens someday. All right. Leslie did have a question she sent to me early on. She does a project where she embroiders something special about a book that she loves and puts it on piece of clothing. I think she has a hoodie. I'm not sure what it is, but we're going to wait and see. But if you were to recommend one thing that would represent this book to be embroidered, what would it be?
Ooh, I love that. I would say a pine tree because it's a tree book. Also,
But
I
it's
know
not
those
a
are
tree
easier to
book.
stitch. If you can see right there, I don't know how close you guys can see. I love embroidering. When I was writing Small Favors, I do because I handwrite a lot of my books, and I have a thing when I go in and type what I've handwritten. Every time I get to 1,000 word or get another extra 1,000 words, I have a picture that I either color like little things on. It's kind of like a word count tracker thing. And I was being super extra for Small Favors. So I decided to embroider. It's a whole forest of trees. I think the book ended up being 102,000 words. So there's 102 trees over
Oh,
there.
I feel
I
like you
love
need
that idea though for like books you've read. What a cool project.
and I think you need to show us this, system. Have you posted that on Instagram before? Like, I feel like we
It's been
need
a
to
couple
follow
of
you
years.
along.
Uh-huh. You guys see my pajama pants?
Oh, great. Oh, yeah.
It's all 102 trees.
Yeah. Well, Leslie said she also thought tree first. I know I suggested starling, but as soon as you said you wanted bats on the cover instead of starlings, I'm thinking, no, not the starling. Samantha also says a bat would be a good one, but
That would be cool.
yeah, lots of different ones. All right, Samantha, would you like to ask your question?
I'm Okay, I just wondered if you had any personal reasons why you veered towards Scottish folklore, like if you have ancestral ties to it or anything, or if you were intrigued by it in general.
The Tamlin ballad is a Scottish ballad, and so I wanted to honor the path that it came from. I might have some Scottish. I'm mostly English and Cherokee, weirdly, but there might be a Scot somewhere in the bloodline.
Great question. Thanks so much, Samantha. All right. I do also want to find out because we've talked about you loving Tamlin, like what books are you loving that you've read or reading that you want to recommend to us that we take on?
So I always hate like because I read so far in advance with things, I always feel really guilty being like, this is the best book you'll read in like 3 months. But the best books that you guys are gonna read in 3 months. Melissa Alpert has an adult debut coming out. She wrote The Hazelwood, which is one of my favorite YA creepy fairy tales stuff. The book is called The Children. I think it's out in June 2nd, I want to say. It's fantastic. It is a story about a famous writer whose kids she actually wrote into the story. And it became like this, kind of Harry Potter-esque, world changing book series for kids. And weird things were happening at the farm when she was writing it. And the kids have very sketchy memories of anything that happened then. And they did not know that they had been written into this monster franchise. And so after the mom and dad died under strange circumstances, they're kind of left as adults with like all of these weird pieces and memories and like what the public believes of their mother, what they know to actually be true of their mother, all of the different ways that none of that lines up to get at the same time. and it's fantastic, and it's so good. I loved it so much. And then Hannah Witten's has her first true horror book coming out, I believe, in August. It's called Reliquary, and it's kind of like Ready or Not meets the sea. Like all the ways the sea can kill you, and eat the rich.
You're like my nightmare. Just don't add
It's so
fairies.
good. I loved every minute of it. I was very terrified.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, speaking of creepy settings, Danielle wants to know, how do you come up with all of your creepy settings in your books? She said, I can't really visualize anything, but your books always give me the chill, and she
Oh,
loves it.
yay. I like a lot of my books. When I was a kid, I really, really loved like all of the creepy, gothic, kind of scary stories to tell in the dark stuff. And I just kind of channel the way those books made me feel and inflict it upon readers as best as I can. I love writing atmosphere stuff. When I'm starting out my books, I always start with the world building. And I kind of visualize exactly, where things are. When I was writing House of Salt and Sorrows, I made a lot of maps of like, this is the first floor of the house. This is the second floor. Like, here's all the bedrooms. What do the doorknobs look like? All of these things. And then I can start to kind of fill in characters and plot lines once I kind of have a space in mind. But when I'm starting a book, I always start with the place.
That's a lot of
And
work.
then just make it as scary as I can.
Yeah, I mean, creating this world with the certain rules and it's work. I mean, that's a lot to do to make it one book. I'm just saying. But yeah, no, I'll keep going. Thank you all so much for joining, everybody. I've just had the best night tonight. Readers, y'all have had wonderful and insightful questions. And don't forget to post a review about A Land So Wide, because that really does help to get more readers to find this book. If you recommend, if you write reviews, um, yeah, and post about it, because word of mouth is the best recommendation. It really is. Also, you know that Erin has these new books coming up, so follow her on her Instagram and we can see what's happening. She kind of hinted at a couple of dates, so pay attention. But I will also say 1 month, Sunday, February 15th, I think it is, at 3 p.m., we're going to have an author from across that pond. It's going to be Benjamin Wood discussing Sea Scraper, which is a long listed for the Booker Prize. I told y'all we're jumping genres quite a bit this year. We're trying to get out of our bubbles, but it's a short book, which is perfect for a shorter month. So get ready for that. But Erin, I just want to thank you so much. You have invited us into your creepy setting. You have given us a new world to think about, bright-eyed vampires, but with a new twist. So I really, really appreciate that. And for a lot of us, this is a genre we don't dive into much. And now I think a lot of us are hooked. So thank you so much. And for
Oh,
all those
thank you for having me.
recommendations.
And thank you guys for coming. This was such a great evening.
Well, and also thank you, Kirsten Miller. She was the one who messaged
Absolutely.
me and recommended this book and this author. So, we do have authors that just keep up with our LB author chats. And so please, Erin, stay involved. Let us know what we can do to help you promote your future books. But all of you out there, how you can help me is hit subscribe on this button right below, and just find those uploaded recorded author chats that you've already read, because just like today, they are spoiler full. So I don't want anybody to hop in and think, oh my gosh, I can't believe Laura Beth just said that. You're forewarned, everybody. All right. But if you want to join live on a chat like this, you can all the time find me on Instagram, Facebook, and then also YouTube. So see y'all next time. I'll see you next month. Everybody have a great night. Thanks again, Erin.
Thank you guys.
Bye, everybody.